So, in recent years, we have been seeing this trend where people are seeking out these really wholesome and crafty projects. You know, there was sourdough making, then there was candle making and painting, soap making, and then there was cross stitch. And I just really love seeing how everyday people are allowing themselves to reconnect to their inner creative. It's just really, really lovely to see. Now, you may think that today's guests, like their business was a result of this trend, but actually it started a lot longer before that. So in today's episode, I want to find out the story. Welcome. This is Creativity Uncovered. My name is Abi Gatling, and I invite you to join me on this journey where I uncover how everyday people find inspiration, get inventive, and open their imagination. Basically, I want to know how people find creative solutions and then how they use them at home, at work, at play, and everything in between. And my goal for the podcast is that by the end of it, you will be armed with a whole suite of tried and tested ways to summon creativity the next time that you need it. So let's jump into it. Today, I'm speaking with Elise Ross of Spruce Craft Co. Welcome, Elise.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm very excited to have you because I have been sort of stalking you a little bit on socials for a while now, and I'm thinking you will be a fantastic person to be on the podcast. So thank you for accepting my offer.
No problem.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
Great. So I did mention cross stitch in my intro, and you were way before the trend, before 2020, when everyone got excited about that sort of stuff. But it started as a side hustle, and you were a speech pathologist at the time. So tell me, how did this start out?
Well, it started with like the traditional Etsy store. You know, and I've always needed a creative outlet whenever I've been doing anything in life. And speech pathology, especially at uni, is very full on. And I've always just found that the two things side by side creativity is my outlet. So then I had a little bit of time between finishing uni and then being registered and being able to apply for jobs. So that's when I started the Etsy store. And for the first 2 weeks, I made cushions. I had a little store that created cushions despite not knowing how to traditionally sew. I don't know how to do zips or anything like that. So that went out the window. And then I bought an $80, I remember it was an $80 software to create cross stitch because that was what I was doing anyway. I was cross stitching in my spare time. And $80 was a huge amount back then. And then I started creating my own patterns for myself, and then I started to put them on to Etsy as digital downloads. It's a very low barrier to entry for digital downloads. And then I had my very first sale when I was walking out the door to go to my graduation. And then since then, about a year later, we opened up the website. Eventually the website overtook Etsy, and I've only recently just gone off Etsy completely. That was just sort of running in the background for years and years. And now it's all completely website. And yeah, that was the beginnings.
Wow. I mean, what a cool graduation present.
Yes, isn't it?
To get your first sale. That's so cool. So you had been doing cross stitch prior to that just as a hobby?
Yeah. That was always, my mum introduced it to me, I think I was about 9. She just used to introduce me to different hobbies, and that was the one that stuck. I think we've all got our thing that it sort of chooses us rather than we choose it. And it's just my preferred, just caught on, and I love doing it.
Oh, okay. So your mum was kind of trying to experiment and let you find different, were they all creative outlets, or were they, sports and all sorts of different
sports like t-ball and karate, tried a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And despite she's not a cross stitcher at all, she just bought me some supplies and we tried it out. So that was a happy little turn of events.
Oh, yeah. I mean, much better than T-ball, much more transportable.
I do wish sometimes I had more of a physical outlet, but if I have to sit on the couch and cross stitch, then so be it.
So what is it about cross stitch that kind of appealed to you? Like what initially, what was that like, okay, this is my hobby that I want to do?
It took me a long time to realize what it was. And it was only a couple of years ago when I started to um, survey my customers just to figure out why they cross stitch. And then it made me realize why I do as well. And it's just because it's that forced relaxation, but it's also not. It's not relaxation in the form of like meditation where you have to switch off your mind, because a lot of people really struggle with that. They can't just, you tell someone to relax, that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But this is something that you're still using your brain, you're still using your hands, but you are relaxing at the same time, because it's not heavy work that you have to really think about. Yeah. And so that's what was for some reason, I was resonating with everyone's answers. And it also made me realize that it takes about 3 weeks of not doing any cross stitching where I start to feel my anxiety rising in everyday life. So it had, without me even realizing it, had become a way of like de-stressing, and because it's forcing you to stop and sit. But yeah, it would have taken me 30 years to realize why I was cross stitching. And we probably are all like that with whatever our hobbies are. It's not just a hobby. It has a reason. It has an impact on our bodies and our minds.
Mm.
But yeah, it's crazy. It took me so long to realize.
But I mean, I think a lot of the time people kind of float along saying, oh, I like this thing, but there's nothing to really prompt them to go, why do I actually like this thing?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and sometimes it does take people echoing that back to you to go, oh yeah, that's right.
A lot of people were telling me they don't, what they're stitching doesn't really matter that much. It's the journey of it. And that also helped me. I was so glad I did that survey, because it helped me think a little bit deeper about the business, and then through my marketing as well. It's not just the pretty product at the end. It's like encouraging people to actually like take part in the journey of it.
Oh yeah. I love that, finding a bit more about like the why for your business.
Yeah.
And, I'd love to explore that a little bit more, but I'm still kind of curious about this thing being a hobby of yours since you were a child. Why did you think that you wanted it to be a side hustle? Was that just kind of like the next natural step because you're a uni student, or, because sometimes that can change it when you add money into your hobbies. Mm-hmm. It can kind of taint it a little bit. So what were your thoughts around that?
I think I was just feeling a need as well. There wasn't anything that cross stitch the designing of cross stitch kind of stopped in the 80s, and it hadn't really moved forward. So there wasn't really anything out there that I wanted to stitch myself. So I think I just started to design my own, just to fill that. Well, technically it's a hole in the market, because I was the market and there was nothing for me.
Yeah.
But I don't think I put too much thought in the beginning about it actually being a business. It was just trying something new, trying out Etsy, like experimenting a little bit. I didn't envision it going where it went right at the beginning.
Yes. And it has gone very far. So you started as a side hustle, you started your speech pathology, but it has now evolved into a fully-fledged business.
Yes.
Tell me what was it like trying to juggle this side hustle before you actually made it full-time and your actual regular full-time job that you had studied so long for?
I think right at the beginning, it wasn't too difficult, because, I thought speech pathology was going to be my career. And especially starting out as a new clinician, that's where all my brain space, it was at capacity with learning how to, be a speech pathologist. So, but that was so early on. That was in the first couple of years where, the Etsy sales would just be, just a few a week. So it wasn't actually, I didn't consider it a business back then. And then, so it happened, I'm trying to think of the timeline. So if that was about 2015, and then so I had my first son in 2017. and went, what happened? So I was a full-time speech pathologist just for a couple of years. And then I started to do contract work. So it was still, Spruce was still a side hustle then. Then I had my son and I went back to contract work afterwards for a year. And then in 2019, we decided to just quit my job and go full-time with Spruce.
Wow.
But yeah, so in those first years, I didn't have too much pressure on myself to make it an actual business. So it wasn't that stressful. And I had all this free time after work that I don't have now, having kids. Yeah. And I don't think I appreciated just how much free time I had when I had an entire weekend. You know, if I wanted to put some listings up on Etsy, I had the freedom to do that. So the time management skills there wasn't a lot of pressure and there wasn't a lot of time limitations back then. And I think that really helped sort of build the foundations of the business because I had all this free time to experiment and try out different marketing techniques. And, you know, I didn't have the pressure of having to make money.
Yes. Yeah, I totally get that you've already got your, you know, finances sorted by your regular job. This can be purely fun and experimentation. But you mentioned 2019, the time you actually quit your job.
Yes.
That's when I also quit my job and I started my business. And a few months later, this terrible thing happened and it was shocking for everyone. I was thinking, oh my God, I really timed this terribly. It actually worked out okay. How did that impact you and your business?
That was huge. So I kind of consider them, you know, those early years were the side hustle, and from 2020 onwards, it was a business. So I've kind of got two parts. So yeah, late 2019, when I decided I needed more time to put into the business, let's just finish up my contract and just see how it goes, because we can always go back to speech pathology. It's the one good thing. It's a very stable job. You know, you can always fall back on it. So that was October 2019, and then March 2020. And so I had a really good Christmas because I was able to put that time into it. But then, March 2020, it was like a switch. And I have never, or even since, the volume of sales that were coming in, because everyone was looking for things to do at home. They were looking for things to get them off social media that they were just consuming. Then I just had a product that was available that I could send out to their homes, and it was just flat out right from the beginning. I had my sister staying with us. She helped out as well. But I had how old was he? I had a 3-year-old at that stage. And really our big problem back then was getting enough supplies in, because if we've got to order, all our cotton comes from Europe and our fabric comes from Europe, you know, we just couldn't get things. They'd shut down all the cotton factories over in France. So we had to really make products with what we had.
So by
and we're in Melbourne. Yeah. So being in Melbourne, we couldn't travel anywhere either.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, for those who are listening who are not in Australia, Melbourne had the longest and harshest shutdown anywhere in the world. I think I read that somewhere. So
we're second behind China.
Okay. Yeah. So by this stage, you had sort of moved on from just doing the digital downloads to actually selling kits.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. So that had happened. You know, in the last few years, I'd sort of dabbled with making up some kits. I'd go to Spotlight, which is a big craft store, and I would make up a few kits and put them online, and they were doing well. And I'd eventually built up a range. So by the time that 2020 came along, I did have quite a few products for sale. But I also had that Spotlight mentality where, you know, I felt like I needed to have everything in stock all the time. So I had unlimited quantities of everything available by the time the pandemic hit. So people were just buying before I had made the stock up. I remember counting at one point that, you know, okay, I'm looking at all these orders. If I just sat here and made them, it would take 17 hours to fulfill the orders that I just had. And at some point in 2020, I turned off all my ads and I took all the products off the website, and then I started to do it as, whatever I made up, then I would list that for sale just to help keep things calm and ticking along. And then I've moved out of that mindset of, I'm not Spotlight, I'm not a big craft store, and we don't have to act like that. So when things go out of sale on the website, I don't panic now. And I've been able to keep that mindset throughout the years. I've still got it. So that's one good thing it taught me.
Yeah, I mean, so many learnings that, this is your craft, but you've also had to become a business owner and wear 1,000 different hats that you have to as a small business owner. Social media and marketing, being some of those is so it's so cool to hear how you've been experimenting and testing out and seeing what fits you and what fits your business, because you don't actually have to be the same model as like Spotlight or anywhere else that is one of these big craft stores, because they have so many more resources than any of us would have access to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I actually did come across you on your socials, and I mean, I follow a lot of arts and crafts stuff on socials. I just love it, and it gives me my dopamine hit. And I love your socials. And how hard was that for you to try and pick that up and start thinking like, okay, I'm running my business, I'm doing the 17 hours of order fulfillment, and now running this website, I got to figure that out. Now, on top of that, also actually got to come up with a strategy for socials. Like, how did that feel? Because that's taking you further and further away from your craft, because you're having to add all these extra tasks in. How does that feel? How do you manage that?
Well, that came later. So, end of 2021, when the sales had died off, that big, most online retailers who did well during COVID had that big come down, and we were expecting it because we knew that sales couldn't stay at that inflated rate. Thank God as well. But then, sales that had come so easily to us, we didn't have to work for it. We now had to work for it. And now, even a couple of years on with the economy as it is, we're having to work extra hard. So it wasn't really until then that I was forced to learn a lot more marketing skills and actually, I had to go out and get sales instead of them coming to me naturally. Social media has been it's just a lot of experimenting. It's been an interesting journey. It didn't take me, I found a big turnaround for me is when someone encouraged me to put my face on socials. So that was early last year. And I just had my third son was about 3 or 4 years old. And I was just in that postpartum, this yuck phase where you just feel disgusting. You think you look gross. And the last thing you want to do is put your face on socials. Yeah. I thought, all right, it's just got to happen, because that's the advice from everyone, is put yourself out there. So I booked out a full day to just make videos. I got my hair done in the morning.
Nice.
Put the makeup on, and just, even on the way into the office, I was like psyching myself up, doing some videos on Instagram, and then spent the whole day just creating videos. And then from that point on, I felt like my social media sort of turned a page and started to pick up. It became a lot easier as well. Like just thinking about content became easier, and creating it became easier. Like it's always going to be hard to find the time to create it, but the ideas were sort of flowing a bit more easily. But yeah, that was, I would say, like that point in time, shows up to me, because that was when things changed, I would say, and social media started to make a bit more of a difference for me.
Yeah. It is nerve-wracking to put your face out there, and it's harder to edit, and you can't fix things post-production as much, but it really does speak to the fact that social media is about people connecting with each other. They want to see your face. They want to know this person who they have been following for so long. So I think that's cool. And it is certainly also a muscle that you need to work out. And then each time it gets a little bit easier. I
Yeah.
love the fact that now all these ideas are just coming to you. You don't even have enough time to
Yeah.
record them all.
I think we all have rules for ourselves, like there's something in your mind that's telling you, like for me right now, my rules are that I don't do lives, and I don't do live video because I like to edit. So if we all think about what rules we have for ourselves, then you also think, well, what can I kind of tweak? And maybe one rule I can be a little bit flexible on, because there'd be a lot of people out there saying, I don't do videos. I don't put myself on videos. And you think, well, let's maybe just try for a week. Maybe pretend you don't have that rule for yourself and see how you go. So, because you don't have to do everything. Like, I don't think it's necessary for me to ever do lives. So I probably never have to change that rule. But just knowing that I've got it there, there's probably no real reason for me to have it, but it's there and it's stopping me from sort of creating that particular content.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, that's really interesting. These are these sort of subconscious rules that we give ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of have to examine, like, why do we?
Yeah. Because we follow that rule completely. I don't do this. And so, well, can't argue with that. And so, well, maybe we should be arguing with that.
Yeah. It is funny because I kind of went through a similar situation where I was like, I need to be on social media more. I need to be on videos more. I need people to get to know me so they want to talk to me in my business.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really scary. But once you actually cross that threshold, you look back and you go, why did I find that so scary? It just becomes so natural so quickly, I found, for me anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other bit of socials that I love of yours is 100 days of cross stitch. And I've been following that. And tell me, how did you come up with that idea? Because that's a big commitment, 100 days.
Yes. Yeah.
How did
I knew it would be. So I've got the rule. And again, another rule for myself is that it's 100 days, but it doesn't have to be 100 days in a row. Okay. So that 100 days might take me 12 months. And by the rate of it will. But yeah. So, I came up with that through an artist that I follow on Instagram, and she was doing 100 days of painting. So I think her name is Hannah Rebecca Designs, or flip that, Rebecca Hannah, either way. Yeah. She is doing a little painting on the same canvas, every day for a year, and she's actually doing it properly. Like, she's doing 365.
Oh, in a row.
However many fit on that canvas, she's doing it. And I think that's what social media is. There's no original ideas. We just borrow from everyone else. And I had sort of been wanting to find a way to show more of the actual cross stitching, which is really hard because when I cross stitch, it's, I'm in front of the TV, terrible lighting, just, it's not film worthy at all. So this way is perfect because I can do it. It's just a tiny little bit of stitching. It takes about 45 minutes. I have great lighting. I can film it perfectly. And then it also shows people the actual action of cross stitching. And I've realized that people love a series, because that's why I sort of analyzed why I liked watching this girl's paintings. And it's because, well, there's going to be another one. Like, I like this. It's telling my brain, you can have more of this. Let's go. And so you follow. And so it has definitely increased my followers. Instagram is it's a little bit infamous for, you stop growth. It was really hard to just, it's almost like it turns a switch on, like, okay, you can grow a little bit now and now you stop, which is fine. Yeah. But yeah, so having this series has encouraged a lot of followers and quite a lot of traffic to my website as well. The other thing is it gave me content to put on TikTok, because I never knew what to put on TikTok, and I have an account and I'm just throwing those videos up now and they're doing pretty well. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is it's helped me with thinking of ideas for content. So now instead of, what reel do I put up? I now know I'll just throw up one of these videos, don't have to think about it. So it's kind of crossing all these boxes. This one little series. So that would be my advice. If there's any way that you can create a series, like just map it out from the beginning and just pump those videos out.
Yeah. I think it is interesting. The psychology of that is that people are invested in your journey and they want to see how it turns out. But yeah, you're right. Like so many socials are kind of very singular and, it might be a video about this and a video about that. But now you've actually given a reason for people to want to come back and actually seek you out because they're like, hey, I wonder what the next square is going to look like.
Yeah. And I think people like that, the comfort of, it's a familiar video. It's basically the exact same video every time, but just with a different design. And, when I think about the videos I like to watch, there's a very famous YouTuber now. She's now famous. So her name's Brookie. And she does
Brookie Bakery.
Yes.
Yes.
And, every video is pretty much the same thing. It's just her in her bakery, but it's still fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's same but different, and I think that's a strategy that kind of seems to be working.
Yeah. Consistency for sure. Yeah. And so, now you're actually having to do some cross stitch. You're having to carve out time to do it, whether, because it is on a video. Is that helping you keep that creativity in your life when you're like so busy with everything else that's running the business?
Yeah, I would say it does definitely help. That kind of stitching is not as therapeutic for me as doing it, in my tracksuit pants on the couch, just because it's still in my office and I'm still in work mode. But it definitely helps. I find that the hardest part is finding time for the actual designing. So, that's when I have to be at the most creative. And I can't just, throw in 10 minutes. If I've got 10 minutes in my schedule, I'll just squeeze in a little bit of designing. You need to be in the flow. So you need to have a big chunk of time to actually get the designs done. And, nothing else works. If I don't have the designs, that's the magic, basically. If I don't have the design, we don't have the kits, we don't have the subscription boxes. So everything revolves around the actual designs.
Yeah. So that's a lot of pressure on that. And I mean, how do you manage that? Because for me, pressure and creativity, never the twain shall meet,
Yes. Yeah. That's a big, that's always been a problem with creatives. As soon as you make it a job, I have had a lot of people tell me that once you make it your job, your love for it disappears. And I haven't found that yet. So I'm always on the lookout for it. But I have found, different little strategies that have been working. So at the moment, when I do designing, so twice, because I have 3 kids, this is my main obstacle in life of, trying to get enough time. I've found that batching my designing a couple of times a year has really been working. So I will go to a hotel like for 2 nights. It doesn't have to be anywhere fancy or anywhere far away. And that's all I'm allowed to do is just the designing and try to pump out, we do a pattern of the week, a digital download pattern every week. So I'll get 20 weeks done at a time. So then I can just use those throughout the next few months. So this is a strategy that is, it takes a lot to get it to work because, I've got to have my husband has to take a little bit of time off and, we deal with childcare and everything. But this is what seems to be working for us right now. So we're going to keep doing that until it doesn't work. And then we just think of another strategy.
Yes. Yeah. To get a distraction-free zone.
Yes. It's just basically eating and designing. And that's the whole, 3 days. So.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. I actually do know people who do that for writing. If they're writing a book, they take themselves away where there's no phone coverage, barely any internet. And so they sort of forced us to work on it.
Yeah, it really does work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So having the time to actually do this design, you've come up with an idea for, solving that hurdle. But how do you stay inspired to come up with new ideas for the designs?
That's not ever really been a huge issue. I think sort of creativity begets creativity. So as long as I'm having these regular chances to design, new ideas come from those. So if I just, like a really simplified version, if I design a little bird to go with a quote, then another bird or nature theme might pop into my head. I've got my notes app on my phone, which is just full of my ramblings. So all my ideas just go straight into there. But yeah, the actual ideas are not really the issue. It's the time to bring those ideas out, I would say. But yeah, like my notes app, that's another strategy, just to, whenever any semblance of an idea comes into my head. So it could be like a color palette. I might see something that looks really nice, like a border or something. So that could be an idea. Straight into the notes app so then I can decipher it in a time when I've kind of got the headspace for that.
Yeah. Do you find it hard to choose which ideas you want to go with, given you have so many ideas?
Yeah, it is hard. And it usually will depend on what is needed now in the business. So it's become a lot more sort of clinical. So, if I need a stitch along, which is a big design, because, I have everything sort of mapped out for the year. When I have my stitch alongs, when I have my subscription boxes, everything is pretty organized. So the designs now depend on what the business needs. So if the business is looking for a stitch along is coming up, then I need to focus all my energy on having that design done.
What is a stitch along?
So stitch along is when, so it's a mystery design.
Ooh.
So you don't know what you're stitching. You know the theme and you know the color palette. And then a different part of the design is released every month for about 6 months. And then so everyone does it together. And we all sort of we see the design unfold over that time. So it's like a little bit of social stitching. So we do it as a community, in our Facebook group. It's been really fun, actually. I've got a new one coming out this weekend, actually.
Oh, okay. I love it. I love how diversified your business has become. That's, there's like the do-it-at-home packs. If you want to do it in a community, you can. If you just want to observe, you can. I think that's really, really cool. And I'm very impressed by you.
And I think that's sort of just the benefit of, I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I've just been able to add things over time. It's not something you could kind of achieve in a year. I'm sort of now, especially being out of that really little baby phase, I'm starting to see like the cumulative effect of everything I've been working on come together. Like now my email flows are set up. It just took so long to get that done. I thought I would never, ever get to the end of that list, but that's set up. My Facebook ads are running. I'm just now getting my Google ads set up. That's been on my to-do list for about 8 years, but it's just, and once you've done it, like once you've set up your flows, you do have to go in and every now and again just to check, update, but it's done and you can move on to the next big thing.
It's very iterative, isn't it? Like bit by bit, you can't go and just do it all at once because it's not sustainable.
It really is. And I think it's taken the pressure off, because especially just starting out, you want everything done right from the beginning. And that's where a lot of like that comparing yourself to other people is really dangerous, because you want what they have, but you don't have those years behind you yet. So it's impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard with socials, because that's what you're doing. You're just getting this like little image of what other people are doing, and it's hard not to compare yourself, but you're also not getting probably the full story either.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, what a journey. I absolutely love that chat. Thank you so much for joining me today, Elise.
That's okay. Always happy to talk about it. I
Yes.
realize what a journey it is until you can actually, say it. Because there's not often you talk about, the progress that you've made, especially with certain, definitely me, but certain personalities who we're only thinking in the future. We hardly ever think about the past.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is good to sort of stop and, just take a casual look over your shoulder and go, oh, I actually have come a long way. And I think also, yeah, when you're sort of focusing on the next thing, you forget to celebrate your little wins along the way.
Yes.
And you obviously learn from any stumblings and stuff like that. But then the wins are kind of like, well, tick, that's done. Let's move on.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Well, I'm glad that we're able to allow you to, reflect on your time, because I think it's a fantastic journey, and I think a lot of people will be inspired by your story. So thanks for sharing it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in to today's episode of Creativity Uncovered. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you want to get into cross stitch, just have a look at our show notes and share the episode with a friend if they might be interested. And as always, if this episode has inspired you to take that leap with your creativity, let us know. I'm always keen to hear what people's journeys are looking like. So until next time, take care. If you've made it this far, a huge thank you for your support and tuning into today's episode. Creativity Uncovered has been lovingly recorded on the land of the Cubby Cubby people, and we pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. This podcast has been produced by my amazing team here at Crisp Communications, and the music you just heard was composed by James Gatling. If you liked this episode, please do share it around and help us on our mission to unlock more creativity in this world. You can also hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episode releases.